Welcome back to another episode of the Vision Hunters podcast. I'm your host, Cody Storey, and this is part 2 of episode number 16, transforming opportunity and risk into reward by entering the business battlefield with Callye Keen. Before we get into today's episode, new episodes of the Vision Hunters podcast are released every Wednesday on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Or if you want to watch the show, you can head on over to my Cody Storey YouTube channel. The spelling is Codystorey. If you missed part 1 of episode 16, I highly recommend you pause this, go back, and start there. You can start here, but you're really going to shortchange yourself because Callye dropped a ton of gems related to entrepreneurship and related to building profitable businesses from scratch. And now if you already listened to part 1, or if you're just going to pull the trigger and then go back and listen to part 1 later, I'm going to let you know right now, this is another banger and you're in for one hell of an episode. Also, if you don't know Callye by now, he's another what I call real one. He's been on the business battlefield for years. He's put in the work, he's developed the skills, and not only is he a successful businessman and entrepreneur, but he's actually reproduced success over and over with countless others. Callye is the creator of redbluecollective.com, where he coaches product entrepreneurs to unlock growth while reducing expense, time, and overwhelm. He's also the host of his no bullshit podcast, End Hype, where he coaches brilliant misfits, innovators, and outsiders to transform product ideas into business realities from real experience without fluff. Some of the things we discussed in today's episode are why most people would rather pay you $50K for you to solve their problem than spend $5K for you to show them how to solve it. Why selling people on the idea that they're going to get tons and tons of training and tons of coaching with your offer might be the very thing that's causing them to object. Why you need to learn how to solve for time and overwhelm when selling business development offers. Why you need to be able to show your potential customers what their life would be like working with you in a positive light. The question of should you pursue entrepreneurship and business alone, or should you get a mentor? Why seeing success is one of the most helpful things you need to succeed. Why entrepreneurs love fake gurus. Why success is simple and difficult, not complex and easy. How to overcome the fear of failure. How switching your identity to being the scientist that transforms unknowns and risk into reward might be the very identity switch you need to take your business to the next level. Why you should define the core interests of your audience. How niching down can create more opportunity, accelerate your results, and allow you to impact more people's lives. How to bust through the fear of fearing your competition, and the power of reading sci-fi books for business. Now let's get into part 2 of episode 16 with my friend and entrepreneur extraordinaire, Callye Keen.
A bunch of these companies, they're saying like, hey, if you run ads, and I'm like, ads are one way that we get traffic in step 7. But I mean, I've actually been more successful by going and saying, like I said before, hey, Cody, you have a bunch of people. How can we work together? Hey, you're selling products and you have a big list. I'm selling products and I have a pretty good list. How can we work together and collaborate and we can cross-sell in the list and I don't spend anything?
That's so simple.
It's
so goddamn powerful.
It's powerful. It's why like personal development events work, right? You get a lot of people. You're essentially cross-selling all the lists of everybody that's on stage. You know, it's why people do coaches. They do like collaborative course launches. You'll see more and more of that as well. It's like we have a peanut butter and jelly situation.
But there's underneath that, there's the cross selling. I didn't even think about that in terms of the stage and then doing some sort of course collab.
Yep.
Wow. So do you feel like there's a lot of people that maybe just want to skip all those goddamn steps, or like that's just too much work? Actually, you know what? on these calls, you know, doing that whole high ticket sales thing, selling coaches and or selling courses, coaching and mentorship. I feel there are quite a few calls I've already been on. I'm only been with this company for the past like month and a half, 2 months, but I feel like there are a lot of people when I start giving them, even just walking through like 4 pillars in terms of organic content, marketing, and building out their personal brand. And then getting into later, the 4th pillar is what you're talking about as far as scaling. But as I walk them through that, there's quite a few calls I've been on where by the time I'm done, and we keep it really simple and short actually, so we don't, you know, overload them and make them like tired, and try not to overwhelm them. But it is what happens. Even when we make it simple, I feel like they get to this place at the end and they're like, oh shit, I have to do that. Like, can't we just like skip all that and just get the result? So do you feel like there's a lot of people out there who just won't be willing to build those steps, those initial steps that could build the foundation? But I also feel like that foundation is what produces sustainability and longevity.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the magic button piece. And there is more people that would rather pay me $50,000 for me to do something simple than there are that people would pay $5,000 for me to show them how to do it. And there's more people that would pay me $5,000 to show them how to do it than there are $500 people who would have to like just read it and do it themselves. It's like, it just becomes more difficult. It's like, you think I'm doing everything backwards. Like I'm already what you would consider, or what the market would consider, like an ultra high ticket consultant, right? So people would pay me starting at mid 5 figures and up to do stuff for them. So I'm like, I like working with people. So I'm trying, I've tried different versions of like, hey, now here's a cheaper way, or here's like a monthly way, or here's like here's a program. And I've kind of arrived in the group coaching, or just the one-on-one coaching that's at a monthly, hey, 6 months with me, it's this many thousand. The hey, group coaching, it's a 60-day program. We all, you know, get 10 people in. That seems to work pretty well. But yeah, there's more people that they would rather me write them a proposal and me say, I'll do this for you, $83,000. And they're like, cool. But you know, you're going to have to do stuff. And they're like, I don't know if I have time. So I've come up with this thing, because I'm actually working with more. I'm making products for people that are coaches, and so like I look at how they sell their coaching services now. I'm like, dude, you have to sell them their own time first.
What does that mean?
So if you're asking for 2 hours of their time per week, you have to show them how you're going to save them those 2 hours first. They're already working their ass off. It's just not working. So like the first piece of any program, whether you're a coach or a consultant, whatever, it has to show that you're alleviating the overwhelm for them and essentially carving out your own time. So I have a friend, has a business operations consulting company, talking about moving different things around in their program. I said, well, the first thing right after you set intentionality and goals is to actually show them exactly how to save 2 hours a day, or 1 hour a day, or 2 hours a week. Whatever you feel like the investment in the change of their life will be, you have to show them exactly how to get that immediately. And say, Cody, I'm literally saying like this, is like, I'm going to show you how to save an hour every day, and I'm going to own that hour, and we're going to use that hour to double the size of your business. Can you agree to that? Is if I can show you how to take your 10-hour day into a 9-hour day, I can own that 1 hour for the next 3 months, so we can double the size of your business. And say, well, if you're going to double the size of your business and you're going to save me that hour that you're going to steal back, sure, it's a bet.
So if you're costing them time, you have to show how you're going to save them that amount of time so that you can input your time into that time.
Yep, 100%. Because like they're already coming to you if they're interested. They're overwhelmed, frustrated, tired. So now doesn't matter how good of the thing that you're offering them one more thing.
Damn.
If they had time for one more thing, they would have already been doing one more thing, and they'd be even more tired and overwhelmed. So this is the biggest issue that I see people with business improvement offers is that they don't understand. They'll say like, without frustration, overwhelm, or spending a fortune on ads. I'm like, those are great. That's great pains to move away from, but your offer, and we'll eat into it, because I have a lot of friends that are coaches, and we're breaking this down. Is I'm like, you're not actually solving any of those problems. You said that you're going to do it without those problems. How do you address overwhelm? They're like, I have a clear system. It's very simple. Like, no, that's just like, you have a clear system. It's clear to you.
Yep.
You might be able to make it clear to them, but they're already overwhelmed. So now you're just telling them, hey, we have a like high involvement. Like, really, we're gonna really get in there. We're gonna do this hard work, and we're gonna transform. They're like, oh shit, dude, I don't have 15 minutes. Like, no, I don't want that. Yeah.
This is so fucking good, man, because that's exactly what comes up around the pitch, so-called the pitch. And then if I don't solve that in the pitch, or even in, say, the discovery, somehow drop those seeds, then it comes into the close.
Yeah.
And then it's like they can't get past that. Even if they're certain that the process could work for them, they just can't figure how are they going to compound more work. Like you said, even saying like, yeah, we get in the trenches, we roll our sleeves up,
Sounds
we have
awful.
this much
I don't want
coaching.
that. I don't want that.
And it's
Like,
like, okay.
People do it. They do it 100% wrong. So this is why I've gone super deep. And when I say super deep for me, I mean like, I mean deep. I'm really into learning. Like, I did a sales room on Clubhouse twice a day, every day for 6 months to like learn how people pitch and just listen and refine this. I've done thousands of startup pitches, right? And like, I hear people say aggressive things like that, and they think it sounds good. But they lack third party like emotional intelligence. It's like, it does sound good, and it is what you're going to do, and it's the value that you're going to apply. But like, people, they don't want that, right? They're already overwhelmed. So like, yeah, so it's not a magnetic offer, right? The offer should be so good that when people hang up the phone, before they hang up, you don't ask for a referral. They say, hey, you got to talk to my friend. Right. So like, you talk to Zach and he says, hey, you got to talk to my friend Calley. Right. You gotta be like, you gotta demonstrate enough value where somebody is like preemptively giving you a referral, because you just presented them something so good that they have to go tell somebody else. Until that is like, the offer's not good enough. And the problem with business services is that they're not showing people what their life would be like working with you in a positive light, because they're saying, yeah, we're going to get in there, we're going to do the hard work, we're going to do it with you, it's going to be like amazing. And people don't have the time, they don't have the energy for that. You're also selling them overwhelm and frustration. They've already tried to do it, and like, it didn't work. So when you've got it, you got it right. But what's working for someone else that I know is like, we literally say what I said before. So if you stop, rewind the podcast and listen to it again, it's like, if I can save you an hour, can I steal that for the next 3 months? So you can, and then the thing that they're trying to do. So double the size of your business, or save you 10 hours a week, every single week for the rest of your life. And they're like, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course.
Because one of the questions when I'm going through the discovery process is, I get like how they're generating leads, right? And then I look at the past 30 days in terms of, okay, well, how many people did you talk to? How many did you present your business idea to? And then how many of them signed up? And then I go back 60 days and I ask them, okay, in that 30-day period, what was it like? Get the numbers, the hard facts for me, so I can start to define the gap in terms of where they're at and where they want to go, and try to, bring out the problem so they could hopefully see the value. And then the next question around that time is, I ask them, how much are you currently spending per week on your business to produce what you just told me you're getting as far as a result, which I know is unsatisfactory to them.
Yep.
But if I was to bring that into like the more transition into the pitch, or even, use it as something to help alleviate that objection in a close, in terms of if they told me they're spending 10 hours a week and I know our coaching program takes 2, I can say, hey,
Yep.
if I was able to shave off 2 hours of what you're saying you're putting into your business currently and input our coaching and our training for that period of time and get you this result, which you said is what you want, say 10K a month, 20K a month, then would that be worth it to you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Maybe
like,
I'm simplifying it too much. I
no,
don't
no,
know.
no, no. This is perfect. So like, if you're in your sales, you're in your sales system, however you set it up, you probably have a pain point in there. You're uncovering pains. Usually, time or overwhelms one of those. It's like one of those evergreen pains. So if you're working on like leads and you say like, well, you're spending this much time closing, so if you moved your closing ratio from 20 to 40%, that's going to alleviate this many phone calls. That's going to save you that time that I just said. Like, hey, if I can show you how to save an hour a day or 2 hours a week, can I use those to double the size of your business? And they say, yeah, sure. How are you going to do that? Well, this is how we're going to do it. Is that right now you're doing this and this and this. So if you didn't have to do that as much, like that's going to carve out this much time, correct? Yep. Okay. Well, that's exactly what our process does. And so I'll give you a perspective of this, is because one of my businesses, we're getting into appointment setting. And so people have already spent money on leads and they're spending a ton of time closing leads. And I was like, well, what if you never closed a lead ever again, but you doubled the size of your business? What if you got all of your customers without having to get on the phone? You just woke up and you went to appointments and you closed. They're like, that's stupid. Like, well, what would that do for you? How much extra time would you have during the day? How would you be able to increase the size of your team? What would that look like? They're like, this and this and this. Great. Have you ever bought leads in the past? They're like, yeah, I hate everybody that sells leads. It's the worst. Like this, and they say all these things. I'm like, that's great. What if you just had qualified appointments to go do services directly into your calendar? And they're like, that would be magical. Okay, that's what we're selling. And they're like, oh my God, like to tell me more. And like, there's not really anything more to tell you. Like, and then we go through valuation and pain and stuff like that. But like that's you're like moving all the objections up front. But one of the biggest things that people have with coaching, whether it's whether it's personal development, health, or any of that, is that you've got to buy the person's time.
Yeah, because there's another part in which when we go through the framework or the choreography where we ask them if they could potentially commit to 7 to 10 hours a week.
Nobody who's running a business can do that.
And it's like and we're in like beginner entrepreneurs, like I guess biz opportunity, right? So they're not fully even in the identity of that's even possible for them. They're just kind of curious about it.
Yeah.
And they're doing like where I'm at, even, which is like having a 9 to 5, and then they're wanting to do this on the side. So I'm almost screwing myself over before we even get into the pitch by asking that question. If I'm saying, well, it typically takes our students about 7 to 10 hours per week to generate about 3 to 7 new customers or team members per week. Now, is that something you could potentially commit to? So even right there, we're producing stress, overwhelm, and adding too much goddamn time to their life.
Yep.
Or taking too much time for their life that they couldn't possibly see them doing.
The person that's already on the phone with you, they already have felt the pain and elevation to want to be on the phone with you. So yeah, you've got to like move that over to the side. But
I have to reword it, at least in the way of what you're saying, to flip it.
Yep.
So they can think about it in a different light, which is what I'm hearing, which that means I have to do what you said. Go back, listen to it, write it down, and figure out how to actually present that idea to somebody. That's good. All right. So I honestly, dude, I came up with like 5 pages worth of questions and stuff, and I know we're still rolling here, and I'm really enjoying this. It's just how I roll. And I didn't even know we were going to get into sales and shit, but this is phenomenal. I want to try to ask maybe a couple questions off of my question sheet. Do you still have a little more time?
Yeah, man. I'm digging this conversation. We have a good natural rapport. I feel like
Mhm.
we could talk for a lot, but being courteous to your podcast listeners, you might have to
Mhm.
split this up into a like a episode 2 or chop it up or something. But dude,
Yeah.
yeah, please ask away.
Beautiful. And that's what I've actually done with my 2 hour or 2.5 hour long podcasts is I've done multiple episodes of them or a series. So we're talking about like mentorship and coaching, which I know you do. You do coaching and consulting. You've touched on that a little bit. So do you suggest getting involved with like masterminds and mentorship? Because I come from like the world when I was running my business, I have a hard time buying a lot of the bullshit that's out there. And I feel like it's very noisy and confusing. And there's just so much BS. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there's a lot of other people that feel that way. However, they have dreams and ambitions and visions. So it's like, do you recommend in terms of masterminds or mentorship, getting involved with it rather than trying to go at this alone? And then what are some of the reasons as to why you would feel that's important?
That's a really good question. So like, I mean, I've tried it both ways. So I'll tell
Okay.
you right now, I'm a member of multiple different masterminds,
Hmm.
and I'm naturally like in a perfect world for me, I would be behind my computer. I'd be just playing on my computer. I'd be designing products. I would be not visible. I wouldn't talk to people. That would be my thing. I would just be like reading books and doing stuff.
Hmm.
I know that the level of success that I want to achieve is not congruent with that behavior. So I've very intentionally in the last 6 years put myself out there into different groups, and I said like, hey, I want to participate in this startup incubator. Okay, I want to participate in this bigger one. I want to run my own incubators. Oh, I want to go speak at colleges. I want to go speak at the biggest college. I want to go do this. And I'm like, I don't really like that. I don't like this community. I don't like that
Mm.
community. I don't like this. But like, I know that like from a priori evidence, like me actually doing it, right? Me firsthand being like, wow, these people don't know what they're talking about and they're giving terrible advice to people. And so like I was late to the game of the personal development entrepreneurship universe.
Okay.
I mean, I knew about Tony Robbins and knew about all some of the like more well-known characters for a long time, like everybody did.
Hmm.
But like I went through these other like the business groups, and then through the academic groups, and then through these like large kind of corporate groups, and doing this stuff. And dude, it's not just something about personal development groups and entrepreneur masterminds. This is why my brand, I have a trademark in the US, business services and consulting and launching products, end hype. That's my trademark, right? It's
Hmm.
end hype. And I came up with that before I joined any mastermind. And it was because of working with professors that were teaching stuff they've never done, people writing
Hmm.
200-page business books that are just have like one page of value, uh, bankers running incubator groups, or like people that have run one successful business telling like a room full of startups how they should do it and believing the
Hmm.
dogma and the religion of success. And
Hmm.
like I just see this as just bullshit over and over and over again. That, and I'm into like graffiti and streetwear, and it's just kind of
Hmm.
like a fun mishmash of like who I am. Um,
Yeah, I saw that. I actually like that. I think it's badass. I come from the rap world, even though I grew up in a small town in the mountains. That was the time and that was the culture.
yeah, that's
Hmm.
awesome. Like, and so I kept trying on these things, and I'd like, there's things about it that are all positive, right? I don't want to say that this is completely negative. I met amazing people along the way of in these different groups, but what I've landed on is these different masterminds, whether it's like Apex or Arate or working with Zach, or just having friends that are in that. I have a lot of friends that run masterminds as well.
Hmm.
And the reason that I have those friends is because people join multiple of these groups. And for you to be successful, one of the most helpful things is to be able to see success, right?
Yep.
It's not just like modeling and having the playbook, but to see it and be like, dude, that guy's just like me. He's just a normal person. He has his own challenges, his own problems, and they have a background that's like me. And that person's makes $8 million a year. So I should be able to do it too. Right. Not that like I'm not envious. Like I want what they have. It's just that my model of the world has changed. Like I know that it's possible for me, and that it collapses that positive reality and makes it so it can be something that I can achieve. Right. I think that's very beneficial. But just elevating your circle, other people that believe similar things to be true, like that hard work can lead to success. That being credible is important. But like, there's a lot of these groups, and there's a lot, dude, there's so much bullshit out there. Yeah. There's a lot of bullshit courses, a lot of bullshit programs.
Can you speak to that in terms of, I loved one of your episodes on why do entrepreneurs love fake gurus, which then goes into why do people love scams, and then further is scams and grandiose promises.
Yeah, well, it's like a lot of it is because it's that like success curve, like we were talking about earlier, is that massive success can happen rapidly, but like there's no get rich quick scheme. And the reason that when you see something work for somebody is because they've put in a decade of work, like slowly building a skill set, building a team, building a community, building like the identity, building like the mental model of what they were going to do. And then they may have failed 3 times and then they got the one win, and you're like, oh, and they're, you know, like Gary saying, oh, overnight success, put that shit in your pocket. Right. But like what it is it looks alluring, like that one part of the graph, boom. And people want that boom. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that sell the image of that and say, I can do that for you too. Yep. And it's just not the case. You know, it's just like, it's a multiplication error. It can't happen.
And you were talking about like how we're evolutionarily wired, and I love going to evolution. Like it highlights so much. And then assuming that others have the answers, and ego, like there's got to be a trick to unlock the potential. The billionaire, the genius is waiting inside. Can you speak to those two?
Oh my God, there's so many factors that are at play, and we're at like an intersection of a lot of those factors right now. But it's like this is if you look at, there's a thing called a Garner magic quadrant, right? And it's just a fancy way of saying there's a square that's made out of 4 squares. And they use this to like rate different softwares or businesses. They'll be like innovation and cost, or like leadership and features, and they'll map things and they'll say this is the clear winner, which it's always nonsense, right? Those people don't know what they're doing, but it looks really clean. If we look at this, is that there's a temptation because we either think very highly of ourselves and our skill set, or we're insecure about what we're doing. Usually those things they're parallel, right? Success is usually it's simple and difficult, not complex and easy. So we look at it and we say, oh, I've put in so much hard work. There must be a secret unlock, right? There must be the magic easy button and the silver bullet that I'm not getting, that somebody has that I don't.
And that's how it's fucking marketed, bro.
Yeah. And but that's how, because neurologically people are like, oh, I'm working so hard. I couldn't just work harder and make it happen. And it's like, it's true, right? There is a shift that could make you successful, but what is being sold is a bill of goods in general. Is like, so in my universe, people sell Facebook ads and they say, I'm an e-com expert. And I'm like, they're not an e-com expert. They know how to run ads. Like, it's just, there's so many people selling ads that like they can't market themselves as that anymore. So they just change the name. Like they don't actually know how to do that. And they say like, hey, well, we can do this magical thing for your business. I'm like, since they don't know how to run a physical product business, they don't understand that if you get too much sales into the system, you can make the business go out of business, because they don't understand like cash flow, capital allocation, how inventory and how returns could work, or how the supply and logistics work. Like they don't understand like the actual dynamics of the business, what it works on the ground level. And that like throwing more sales into the system doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be successful. It could actually make them go out of business and break them operationally. Wow. Because they're not experts. Like they're ad sellers. And like, and you see this kind of bullshit over and over again, is that people are saying like, I'm going to turn you into a closer. I'm like, okay, you're going to tell some people some good scripts that work for sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they need to work in sales so they have the context to apply that information. They have to be hung up on 1,000 times. Like you're going to help facilitate that. You see this over and over again. Like I'll teach you how to do this thing. I'm like, and it makes people like myself or my friends who are trying to sell something where I'm like, oh, I'll show you how, if you make 20K a month in your e-commerce business, I'll show you how to make an additional 50K in 90 days. Like, and they're like, this offer sucks. I'm like, it does kind of suck because relative to the market, like I have to say something hilarious like, hey, I'm going to, double the size of your business in 30 days. Otherwise it's not competitive because people are looking for this. They're looking for absurdity right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of factors in play right now.
So how do people or the listeners, or because I've been dealing with this, and that's why I was so grateful I came across Mike and came across you now. It's like, all right, so how do we weed out the bullshit, right? How do we find what I call the real ones? And is there like red flags? Because I feel like you're talking about some red flags here as far as what you just mentioned. So what are the red flags and the warnings for people to look out for so they don't get hung up in that fake guru bullshit and can actually find someone who can help them?
I mean, there's some pretty, like, one funny thing is like there's a lot of the like classic gurus, and if you just search the thing that they're saying like on YouTube, there's like a million people saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You realize that it was a trending topic, so they created content that's just the same as everybody else. It's because like they don't actually know what they're talking about. They're just trying to create eyeballs, which I respect that, but it's like they couldn't be experts in all of these pieces. I mean, that's one element.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest thing is just to go talk to them or talk to somebody on their team and like ask them questions. So when I do say open up my group coaching, or I just before this, I was on a call with somebody that's in a mastermind with me, and like I make this offer available to everybody. Is anybody that's in here for free, I'll get on a 30-minute or an hour call with you, and I'll break down wherever you are in your business, any piece of information that I know, any contact that I have. I have nothing to sell you. And I do end up getting a lot of referrals out of that, or other calls, but mostly I get like other collaborations, like where we end up working together out of it. And I don't know. I feel like they're selling ridiculous things that they've never done. Mm-hmm. You could just like look at them and say, hey, XY guru, they've never done this thing, mm-hmm. and they're selling it. Mm-hmm. They've never done it for somebody else. That's like one of the most clear indicators for me. Mm-hmm. Like there's just a lot of the same kind of silly information or offers. If they put out an offer and they can't explain exactly how they're going to help you achieve that specific thing, like in a very simple way. Like if I tell you, hey, I have these 9 clear steps. Well, one of the easiest steps that I have people do is that we pick existing products that we can tailor to your audience, and we sell them to your existing list. Or we pick products that are people that you're associated with, and we cross-sell them to the list. That's how we make 50K usually in like 30 days, but let's call it 90. Mm-hmm. It's not any more complicated than that. Right? Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to do. Now, what's more complicated is we're going to build a business system where this becomes something that's foundational that we can repeat and we can scale, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's it. I just told you the joke, right? Mm-hmm. You either think that it's funny and we want to move forward, or you think that I'm like funny in the head and the conversation's over. Yeah. So like they give these crazy like we're going to do this in this period of time, so you can like do this without any of this. Like it sounds like a great offer, but then it's like, I know I'm going to sign up, I'm going to get on the call, and I know that strategy call is a closing call. Like I know that. Most people know it. Not everybody knows that. But most people kind of can suss that out. Right. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, like how is that going to happen? Like, what's the joke of it? And if it doesn't make sense and somebody can't explain it very simply and succinctly, like they don't know how to do it. They're not an expert.
So there's the red flags and the warnings, folks. Now, how do you help your clients overcome like the fear of failure? Because one of the quotes that I picked up was, it's impossible to gain mastery over the fear without knowing the risks. And then you went into like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when I found you going into that, I was like, with every need, there is a fear. So could you tap into how you help people overcome that fear of failure?
Yeah, and this is especially true for people that have achieved success. So like you, Cody, you're operating from a position of power that you might not even appreciate the privilege that you have of where you've been because you understand what failure could look like.
Mm-hmm.
Other people don't understand what failure could look like because that was like the time that they like something so minor happened to them. And they're like, yeah, that was really bad. Like I got a detention that time and I felt pretty bad about the thing that I did. And it's like, so they operate, when they operate outside of this norm, they have a lot of fear of what failure could look like because they've never not had something. And the smarter the person, the more they're able to operate mental gymnastics to mask that fear with logic. And they'll put these like, they'll be like, no, you don't understand, Callye. This and this and this. This and this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, so this person's calling me because I'm the expert. And now they're convincing me that they're going to fail because of things that they've perceived, but this is what I do. And so they think that that sounds smart. I'm not going to argue with them because what I know is that they've constructed an argument why they're going to fail to protect themselves against failure. In reality, all of those arguments of fear of like, this won't work because of this, this couldn't work because of this. I'm like, but we can just search on the internet right now. For everything that you're trying to do, somebody else has already done. And we're not afraid of competition for that. We're saying that we know that the market has a demand because somebody's already doing it. We just have to do it better. We have to bring it over to a new audience. We have to solve a different problem. But what you're saying is demonstrably not true. And if I were to argue that, it doesn't matter because logic doesn't beat fear, right? But they're putting that shield up because their actual need is for significance. Their actual need is for certainty. Their actual need is for one of those core human needs that we could see in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that we could see in like Tony Robbins, like 7 human needs or 6 human needs or whatever it is. So like they want growth, they want novelty, they want certainty, they want significance, they want contribution, they want one of those aspects. And so it's our job, if we want to move people forward, to be a little bit like a coach, a little bit like a psychiatrist, and say like, well, this person's saying this thing and you know that it's not true because you've already helped people past that problem. Probably already have a step for it. But how do you get them to move through it? And a lot of that for people, this is why I like the side hustles. This is why I like experiments. And I tell people that our job isn't to be a philosopher, to imagine all the ideas and argue with me about why they will be or will not be successful. Our job is to be a scientist, it's to create low risk experiments, to try things and pull out what our assumptions were, what we thought would happen, what actually happened, and to create a repeatable experiment of success. So when we look at trying new things as a scientist, as somebody that's really an entrepreneur, transforming unknowns and risks into some type of reward, then if we can shift our identity of what we're trying to do, we can be successful. So.
So tapping into the scientist side of it.
Yeah. As you think, like a lot of engineers that I would work with, they like that because an engineer's job is to come up with a lot of reasons why something would fail. Like this material is going to fatigue and it's going to break. Water is going to come into this box. Like if somebody dropped this would explode. So they're thinking like that because that's how their brain is trained to think, is to find mistakes. Whereas I say, that's great. Now we're going to use all the power of that brain to find opportunities. And how do we do it? We do it through experimentation. Here's a structure of experimentation.
And so does that, even when you're working with the people you're talking about, like with your clients, is that where you start also getting back into that identity issue, where they're not just someone that has a vision for a big idea that can turn it into a product,
Mhm.
but then there's also the other identity that they need to take on in terms of the businessman or the entrepreneur in
Yep.
order to actually pull this off?
Yep. So here's something really cool, and this is it's a piece that Zach really put the last little puzzle piece in this for me, and so I'll walk through this really quickly. Step 2 is that when we figure out who we're going to serve, I have people list their core interests, the things that make them them, and we look at the intersections of those pieces of those identities. And our world is organized more than ever in identity. So when we look at the intersections of those identities, there's a niche audience that you already know who the thought leaders are, what books that they read, the blogs that they read, the things that they hold to be true. You know all the psychographic information about that group. You know the Facebook groups. You know everything about them because they are you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also know that niche audiences are generally underserved because they're looking at bigger audiences.
Mm.
And so we say, I have access to this group of people. I can test and try, and I can reach out to them, and I can ask them about their problems. But in general, this is how I have people set it up. So they build a personal brand, a company brand, and a movement at the same time. This is how you do it. Is that you say, for anybody's journey, Cody, you're the aspirational identity of you 10 years ago. So if you were to serve people 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago, 3 months ago, they want to be where you are today. So if I can facilitate the transformation of where they are to where you are, I can release product and service and collaboration after, offer after offer, and I can prove that it's true because I am who I am. The transformation of my identity to who I'm going to become, I'm going to create this impact. We're developing a business like this. We're going to help the world achieve this big thing. That's the movement that these people who want to become me, as I become this other thing, they can follow me along in the journey. Mm. And so like then we can have content that people want to watch, right? We can have newsletters that people might actually open up. I don't know, yeah. But that's how you do it. And it's very, very simple. Is that for the most part, if we look at that, we can be the aspirational identity for a group of people. We can serve them and help them move closer to us as we move closer to who our mentor is or the impact that we want. But it puts a lot of pressure and onus on us to develop ourselves personally. Mm-hmm. And then when people are looking at their changing their identity in the service of community impact or impact for a group of people, it's easier for them to have the motivation to do it versus saying like, I just need to learn a little bit more so I don't have to deal with employee issues.
So you also mentioned like niching. Yeah. And niching down versus trying to go after like a broad market. So is that really something, or is that something that's really important as well, is to really niche down? And does that come from figuring out like if it's an aspirational identity that you're going to help them get to and you've already achieved that, so then would that niche market be basically more more of who you are?
So it doesn't necessarily have to be like you in whole, but you think of it like this, is like if you go to the gym, you're going to wear sweatpants. If you go to a business meeting, you might wear a suit. There's different versions of yourself. You're the same you, and you have the same value. The presentation is contextual, but I like niche audiences because they're underserved and they're easier to approach. You always get the bigger circle. Like if you draw 3 circles and you look at the center intersection of those 3 things, you always have access to those 3 things too, because they're touching the intersection. But that center intersection is always underserved. And like oftentimes like that group in and of itself is the aspiration of the bigger groups. Like they always wish that they were as cool as XYZ. Mm-hmm. They're aware of it, so it's not that we're not marketing to anybody but that. it's that when we're speaking, that's who we're really addressing, because that's where we can have the highest value and impact. It's where we can understand what somebody actually wants out of our offer. And generally it helps us start avoiding like, why are you so expensive? Or like, those types of weird objections that people have. Usually when somebody says like, why are you so expensive? It's because you're not offering something that's relative to what they want. Like if I said, hey, dude, it's just going to cost you nothing, but I'm going to make you $100,000 next week. If your business makes an extra $100,000, I'd like $10,000. I explain you how to do it. You get to approve it or not. I'm going to implement it. But on Friday, when there's $100,000 in your bank account, I'd like $10,000. And they'd be like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Like, I'd like to learn more about what that is first. But what people are saying is like, hey, I'm going to solve this problem and it's going to cost you $10,000. People don't actually feel that because it's like a broad market offer, and it's vanilla. Mm-hmm. It's not a laser focused, not cutting right to the bone. Somebody should feel that so intensely that they're like, this would solve all the problems in my life. And you're like, wait a minute. It won't solve all the problems in your life, but it is pretty good. Let's dial it back. And you can only get that if you really, really know who your customer is. So like the model of it is, if we pick that niche audience and you really belong, that's your tribe. So another shout out to a book that I love, Seth Godin's Tribes. He explains this in kind of a different way, but I should be able to post in my Facebook group, hey, I'm trying to talk to 10 of these people, and they should reach out to me, and I should be able to hop on a Zoom and ask them about their problems. And I should be able to build a product and a service. I should be able to use their messaging that they have and create an offer that's in their vocabulary, that addresses one of their top problems, that has the metric that they care about, that has the time frame that they need. And I should be able to repeat it through that process. This really works for any business. Like, your goal, what are you trying to achieve? Who are you going to serve? What do they need? And then constructing an offer that fulfills what you need for a group of people that you care about, and solves a problem that they have. Like, so this is just to wrap this like in a neat bow on this, is that people that are on paper successful, they build businesses for people they don't care about, that sell stuff that they don't believe in. So they have zero fulfillment. They design a prison for themselves instead of freedom. And so you're looking at them and you're looking from the outside of their bars, and you think like, man, this guy's successful. But in reality, they have zero fulfillment. They hate their life. And so if you follow this structure, it's a little easier to get started, but you'll actually, like, through the tough challenges of the business, like people hanging up on you, disappointing things happening, supplier doesn't work, partner leaves, whatever happens, right? You can say, hey, well, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is what I'm trying to do for people. And you can put it in a perspective that matters. And when you have like massive success, does the same thing for you. Is you can say like, well, look, I was massively successful monetarily. I just landed this deal, but I've got a long way to go, because this is what I'm trying to do with my life. This is the impact that I'm trying to create. This is how I'm trying to help these people do this thing. And that was great monetary success. It was a great collaboration, but it's not that thing. So I got to keep going. And it kind of like evens you out. I'm working on a deal. I'm working on a $30 million deal right now. I'm like, if I close this, this will change what my business looks like, but it won't change my life, because I'm looking at what I'm trying to achieve in 10 years. So I'm like, I need to do a couple more things like this. But for right now, it's a great goal, but it's just one customer. So it's going to help one customer do what that one business is trying to achieve. And it keeps you more level-headed to look at things like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very grounding, and it keeps humility involved, where the ego can't just run off and take you with it, so to speak.
I walk on water, I close this deal, and then you're just like, no.
Yeah, and then with that high comes like a big ass drop. You just jumped off the cliff, and now you're just...
Now you have to do it.
Yeah. Well, dude, this is amazing, bro. Like, honestly, I have 1,000 more questions, And I know it's Saturday for you. It's Saturday for me. I mentioned that as we began the show today. You probably want a snack or maybe grab something to drink or maybe even lunch, which I know is where I'm arriving at. I'm like, oh shit, dude, like I want to keep talking. I also feel like I might pass out and fall over because I need something to eat because I only had 2 pieces of beef jerky today because I was fasting this morning. And I also want to not take up too much of your time because, dude, you've been very, very generous with your time, with all of your experience, with your expertise, and so many insights here. Maybe we could eventually do this again because I want to go deeper into like the whole hierarchy of needs with you. I want to go deeper into your solo episode, dude, about the business fundamentals.
Oh, the pyramid structure that I was working out.
Yeah, dude, like I want to go deeper into all of that because I think that's super beneficial. Like, I just feel like I'm attracted to all those things. Like, I wish I would have paid attention to earlier on, but the good news is I'm paying attention to it now. But I also want to share that kind of valuable information with people to where maybe they can apply it sooner rather than later and have the same experience I had. It might shave a lot of time and energy and resources off, you know? So yeah, there's just so much to dive in with you, dude. And self-awareness, like I want to get deeper into that with you. Um that you touched on this a little bit today, but the competition makes the market. I want to go there with you,
Love it,
being the
man.
category king. Red oceans, blue oceans, go deeper into that. I know we touched on a little bit with niching. um Doing market research, really evaluating like the competition, how it's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. It's not doomsday's coming because somebody else is doing what you're doing, but you can really tap into, I believe you said, like doing it better or doing it different and like continuing to refine it over time. So
Mhm.
dude, there's just so much, but I guess I'm getting too hype and you're Mr. End the hype, but I'm gonna have to just be hype on this because the information is
I'd love to
invaluable.
jump into any of those things, but
Okay.
let let's talk about competition for a second, and then
Okay.
we'll wrap this up. But yeah, so people, this is one of their biggest fears, man. Hey, they're like, this is really common for me. Somebody will say, hey, nobody's doing this. It's a brand new idea. It's revolutionary, and they're so afraid of competition they haven't done a Google search.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I do a search, I say, hey, man, there's people doing this. There's an ecosystem of patents that are around this product. There's people selling it in a couple different niches, and they're like, "Oh man, so I guess I can't do it." I'm like, "No, dude, it means that people want it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. You just like let me show you the structure of figuring out what people hate about it, and then we'll just do that."
Mm-hmm.
Like, who needs this that isn't getting it right now? So when we go back to that customer thing, that intersectionality, almost always those people have specific needs that are not met by the broader market. So like in your gym world, this might be power lifters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that is a niche in there. But if you said like power lifters over 40 that um, like have this other thing, right? This other thing, like maybe that they've had rehabilitation issues. So rehabilitation, powerlifting, over 40. That's a great intersection. Well, there's a very specific set of problems that only that group of people have that are underserved by the market, right? In
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, equipment, supplementation, training, etc. So, like, is it easier, because fitness is one of the hardest markets to get into? Is it easier to say, I'm going to get into rehabilitation, over 40s, or weightlifting in general? Or is it easier to combine those things and say, well, that's me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to address this need? So, like, what we can do is see what works in all three of those categories, what doesn't work for our group, and we can create a product and an offer that works. But competition proves that people wanted a thing. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
what we imagine to be true is possible for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, yeah, people get it exactly wrong.
Yeah, and then I think you were talking about how like that just can sometimes stop people.
Yeah,
Like their
terrifying.
idea could actually possibly work. It just might need a little bit of tweaking, or like you're saying, that type of research to maybe come at it from a different angle or a new perspective, or in a way which is addressing the underserved.
Yeah.
That's like a, what do they call it, a blessing in disguise.
Blessing in
So,
disguise.
mhm.
Yep.
So yeah, dude, I want to go deeper into like how do you do that research? I know you did talk about it in that solo show, but I would love to like highlight that some more because again, that's just like some simple things, like maybe not even doing a Google search about it, or you did that one Google search and then you stopped. But what are all the other ways that you can search, right?
Yep.
And then what are the different places you can find the information you're actually looking for? And I feel like you had some really good guidance on that.
Asking
Okay.
people is my favorite way, but I'll
What's
just
asking people? Going directly to the people. It
yeah.
makes sense to me. Simple again,
Simple.
highly effective. Oh man. So
All right.
let's just do like a couple little wrap up questions, and then I want to make sure like people know how to reach out to you, whether it's NHype or Red Blue Collective.
Mhm.
Let's start with like you mentioned two books already, and I do like books, but I also know there's a lot of books that I've read through that are kind of so I like to ask people who are like ahead of me in the game, what are three book recommendations? And it's kind of cliche, but I don't give a shit. What are your top three book recommendations in terms of even personal development,
Mhm.
business, or even product development? And you mentioned Traction today and also Tribes,
Mhm.
but if you want to throw out, three other ones in that realm or just add one, it's your call.
Yeah. So I like a lot of books, and I I do read a lot. And just to start this off and take it into a different direction,
Mm-hmm.
is in the business community, people undervalue the power of fiction books. So like, um, if you want to think about things differently or think about things uh, in a different theme or much larger, there's a lot of science fiction books that are very powerful to get you to think way more broadly or think in a new or odd way. So like, uh, there's a movie for Dune, another Dune movie coming up. If you've seen the old movie, it has nothing to do with the book really,
Mm-hmm.
but like that first book, it's very different, right? So if you've never read it, like think about something like that, or the Foundation series, Isaac Asimov, right? Is it is it will shift the way that your brain works, and that's the good part about that space opera, massive thematic science fiction, is that it'll change the way that your brain can operate. And that's really what we're looking for. People are, they're reading science, they're reading personal development books to like expand their brain. And I'm like, what if you could just read a really cool story that
Mm-hmm.
made you think? Like,
God.
the Foundation series, he's talking about a math and history principle that's able to predict the future of large civilizations. So the collapse of the galactic empire, and like how that works, and how people's different decisions change the course of events of the entire universe. And thinking like that, it opens up a new realm of possibilities for thinking on a system level.
Okay.
But it's
Uh-huh.
just a book. So
God.
go read the book, have fun. That's being turned into a series as well. I don't know if it'll be any good or not, but it's a good book. It was written 70 years ago. So
Mm.
I really think that that's undervalued for people. And you might find your inner nerd that loves science fiction. And there's
Mm-hmm.
lots of books like that. So that's one piece. I do really enjoy Seth Godin's work in general, because he says that he reads lots of books. He reads hundreds of books a year, and he says he reads them until he gets the joke of the
Mm-hmm.
book. And like you can see that in his book. So you read Purple Cow, and it's super short. And if anybody else wrote it, they would say, well, my publisher wants it to be 200 to 250 pages minimum, because that's the threshold of a $12 to $15 book.
Mm.
He just doesn't give a shit. He just write, if it's an 80-page book, he's writing an 80-page book,
Mm.
and you just read it. That book's about differentiation. There it is. You read it. You read it in a day, right?
Which one is that again?
Purple Cow.
Purple Cow.
But he's got lots of great hits. Tribes is good as well,
Mm-hmm.
and they're generally they're exactly as long as they need to be, which I find that to be helpful. They're also written in normal person language, not in like business jargon speak.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of business books, they were just a 5-page little thing, and somebody just plumped it up to 200 pages. You could just flip through it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, I would say So we covered some thought, we covered some marketing. I I really people struggle with digital marketing a lot, and you can think what you want about Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels. Like I know that it attracts a lot of certain behavior that I don't really agree with,
Mm-hmm.
but he puts out an amazing amount of high quality content. And
Mm-hmm.
the things that he says, again, you don't have to agree with who he is or who you perceive him to be,
Mm-hmm.
but it's demonstrably true. He does pretty well with his marketing,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
undeniable. But his series of books are fantastic. So, Expert Secrets talks about a lot of the things that we talked about today. But it's like packed with information that he's aggregated from lots of places. So if you're unfamiliar with marketing and sales and how that would work, um, it's like a lot of pieces of things. So every other page is a new concept for you, and it'll
Mm-hmm.
fill in a lot of gaps. But his whole little bundle is it's very good. You know,
Yeah.
it's very good. Most people don't read it either because um, I don't know they just I feel like the wrong people get that book and the right people don't want to buy it because they're like, oh, Russell Brunson ClickFunnels is this and this and this. I'm like, well, first of all, the guy's super nice. He gives away like $1 million worth of free information. I'm not using ClickFunnels. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
about that. But like that series of books, like if you haven't read it, please just read it and leaf through it. He'll literally give it to you for free. So it's like, I don't see the downside in it. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be like click funneled to death, you might want to pay the $10 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
You just have to pay the pay shipping.
yeah, right.
No, but the way you just put it is the wrong people read that. And the people who should be reading it, they're like, nah, I don't know about that.
I don't know. I'm like, come on, man. I'll send it to you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, wow, this book's like incredibly informative. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah, I
is.
was hearing a little bit of like the aspirational identity and all that in terms of I think expert secrets
Yeah,
is he
he calls
touches on
that
it.
like a transformational bridge, or
Mm-hmm.
he has a clever word for it. But yeah, if you're selling your expertise, it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It weeds out a lot of like scammy behavior too, because you're saying like, hey, I've done this thing. So like, you know, like, and when people haven't done the thing, it's really hard for me to swallow that they know how to do it or that
Yeah,
they can teach me, because it's skill stacking, right?
yeah, yeah. Okay, so we also have the sci-fi. So thanks for enlightening me with that. Like I've honestly never read a science fiction book, I don't think in my life. So that was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. I'm gonna have to investigate that. And you said that was Foundations,
So I think you'll really like Dune
Dune.
because yeah, it's read the
Okay.
first book, and there's a crazy movie for it coming out in
Okay.
November. So you'll be like, you'll get to be like everybody else and be like, oh, the book was better. But it,
Hmm.
you know, but yeah, the other one is called it's called Foundation.
Foundation.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody suggest that. That's amazing. I like that. Okay, and then Seth Godin's work as well.
They're both thematically similar, is that they're talking about thinking around corners or like thinking in extremely long views. So it's a really like mind
Hmm.
bending.
And that's what I want to get into next time, if we can do this again, is critical thinking
Oh,
and thinking how you just expressed it in terms of how this can kind of help shift that or maybe stretch it. Because I feel like that's pretty damn important. And I don't feel like I was ever taught that in school. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm a critical person as far as judgmental, and I've addressed that in my life, but maybe there's a good side to that in terms of some of it not being so good to just be judgmental and critical. But in terms of problem solving and in terms of products or offering courses or whatever it is, I feel like that could be helpful. All right, man. So where can people find you if they want to work with you, if they want to be able to tap into your services or any of your products?
yeah, so people can DM me if they want to just directly get a hold of me. Instagram DMs is fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn more about what I have to offer, or what I put out a lot of content on the podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
end hype, um, and that's always kind of it's always evolving right there. But for the most part, when I get a hold of somebody and they want information, I point them to an episode of the podcast. And that's how we got it from 0 to rank. We were like last month, 135 in business in US. So it's like, we got there because you just, hey, I have a free episode. There's literally a lot of information that I just give away that people charge money for on that. And so that's always my biggest ask. Go listen to the podcast. If it's crazy valuable, DM me. If I sound crazy, let's just leave it alone. Right? Either way, we know where we are, right?
But yeah, folks, like, end hype, check out the podcast. I've been diving into it even more so lately, and there's just so much experience and insight in that. So check it out if you're into like entrepreneurship and business. Just saying. All right, my man. Callye, this has been great, dude. Thank you again for just being so generous and so open, and sharing things that, like, people do pay a ton of money to hear these kinds of nuggets. So thanks, and I would love to do it again. Welcome to the Vision Hunters tribe, that I'm trying to build here. This is in the beginning stages, in the making. But dude, thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's it, folks. Thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review, hit the old like button, subscribe to the show, and share the show with everyone you know. If you'd like to go on the Vision Hunters journey together, you can find me over on Instagram at the Vision Hunters Podcast, and also at Cody Allen Story, CodyAlanStorey. Once again, welcome to the Vision Hunters Podcast. Peace out.